So the more, when you keep promises to yourself, the more brave you're going to be the next time it's time to keep a promise to yourself. Cause you're like, or to even make a promise to yourself. You're like, well, I did the water thing. So I think I'm okay. I think I'm equipped. I think I can do the no alcohol this week or no sugar this week or whatever it is you decide. And then the next week you go, maybe I could even add a little something more. But it's knowing that pace that works for you and not cutting off more than you can chew. So overwhelm often comes from our own doing.
Welcome to the EQ for Entrepreneurs podcast. Like most business owners, you already know you need good business and marketing strategies to scale and be profitable. But at some point, you've hit the dreaded wall where you feel stuck and frustrated. EQ for Entrepreneurs is for business owners and leaders who are honest enough to admit that they just might be the ones holding their business back and are brave enough to change that.
We're Noble and Kathy, and every week we're having candid conversations about all things emotional intelligence and how growing that has allowed us to get out of our own way and is radically transforming both our businesses and our personal lives. This is the secret sauce strategy for modern entrepreneurs who are tired of hustling without seeing results and want to grow a business and a life that they love. Hey, what's up, entrepreneurs, leaders, and influencers? Welcome to episode 45 of the EQ for Entrepreneurs podcast. We have a special treat for you today. We are interviewing life coach Sue Bidstrup from The Great Big Yes. And the conversation today, you're going to love it. It's all about how to get over the things that are holding you back from saying yes to the next thing, to the thing that God has for you, to the big dream, to maybe it's starting something, maybe it's starting a new thing, maybe it's kind of scaling up with what you're already doing. But as you all know, when you're faced with a new thing or the next thing, there's a lot that comes with it. There's fear, there's playing small, there's so many things. Sue talks us through how to say yes to the next thing God has for you. I'm going to give you her bio in just a minute, but first, I just want to make sure we've told you guys about the taco quiz. That's right, the taco quiz. So the taco quiz is something that we have created. We wanted something fun because here's the thing. If you go out and you start talking to a bunch of entrepreneurs or any group of people, quite frankly, about emotional intelligence, it's like their eyes glaze over. They have no idea what you're talking about. They don't have a frame of reference for it. They've not heard of it before. And it really is just kind of meaningless. And so, we've been trying to think of ways, how can we get this out there? People need to know about emotional intelligence. And so we said, let's come up with something super fun. Let's come up with a quiz about tacos because why not? Why not, right? And some of you have heard the taco story, but if you go to YouTube and you just search in YouTube for Noble's Taco Talk, Talk, his taco talk, you will see this video that Noble did as he was coming out of anesthesia. It's a motivational speech all about tacos, and it is epic. So, of course, we had to do a taco quiz. So this quiz is all about your business, and you as a business owner, it's if your business was a taco, what topping would be missing? Are you missing guac? Are you missing salsa? Queso? Cilantro? Like what's missing? And it really is to help you just see how is my emotional intelligence affecting my business, and let's take care of that. Let's take care. So go check it out. It's a fun quiz. Go to eqforentrepreneurs.com/taco quiz and check it out. Okay, let me tell you about Sue. So Sue Bidstrup is a certified professional life coach who's passionate about encouraging women to say yes to a greater calling in their life, to live with passion, to live with purpose, and to make a difference in the world. She hosts a weekly podcast, Great Big Yes, go and check her out. And she has created a thriving membership that's called Team Yes. And it's for women entrepreneurs, business owners, and visionaries who are ready to say yes to their God-given dream. And what Sue does is she empowers her clients to move past fear and stay connected to purpose while they increase their influence and their impact. And so she will help you create a business and a life that you love. So if that describes you, go check her out. Check out the show notes today. We're going to link to all things Great Big Yes, so you can go follow Sue. But I think you guys are going to really enjoy this conversation today and discover a couple tools. She gives you some really specific things that you can do to get out of overwhelm, to get out of playing small, and to get yourself moving forward in the great big yes that God has for your life. Here we go.
Sue, what's going on?
I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you with us. Thanks for being on the podcast today.
Long time no chat. It seems like it's been 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's been 5 minutes.
That's for her podcast. So yes.
Yeah.
So Sue, tell us about yourself. Tell us your story.
Okay. Well, gosh, I love when I first started talking to you guys, you said you've been married 24 years. It made me happy to hear that. I've been married 25 years. Okay. So I'm in the same, right around the same time. I have 3 kids. They're grown. I mean, I have a senior in high school. So in a year, I'll be an empty nester. And then I have a 22-year-old and a 20-year-old. So I have a college graduate. Woo! So we just got a raise. And so that's kind of my family life. And then my entrepreneurial life is that I have Great Big Yes, which is I'm a life coach and a business coach. And so what I do is I help women say yes to a greater calling in their life. And so for some women, this means they want to start a business. Some women want to start a ministry. Some women have a message to share. Some women want to help parents or help other women, or write a book, right? Some women are like, they've always their whole life wanted to sing, and they've never really stepped out on a stage to sing. There's other women who are in business and they just feel like they really want to ramp it up a bit, or like just put a fresh perspective on it. And they're just sick of kind of being that status quo, like mediocre, and they just want to live a bigger life. And so that means different things to different people. But for me, what I've realized is it always starts with that yes. It always starts with that commitment to do the thing. And sometimes it's the thing you thought you could never do, and it can be scary. And so I end up coaching women through fear, through overwhelm, through just kind of that feeling that maybe this is it, especially because I'm 51. And so a lot of women that I coach are in midlife, and they're kind of reinventing themselves, and they're thinking, is it too late? And so what I've realized is there's a lot of thoughts in our minds, and we've talked about this already, that hold us back. And so we got to get out of our own way. And that involves taking every thought captive and really looking at it. And so I do a lot of that work with people one-on-one and in a membership group, because it's not like you get that handled and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm all good. There's nothing else I need to know here. It's something we keep coming up against. So it's a practice for sure.
Yeah. How long have you been a life coach? How long have you been doing all this coaching?
Yeah, so the coaching really started a year ago. I got certified last May. And so it's been a year of coaching. But before that, I was a yoga teacher. And so I did that for about 7 years. And I was a Christian yoga teacher, so I taught holy yoga. And so it was a lot of this same work. You know, I think, and we've talked about this with the EQ, it can be scary to step into that and ask yourself questions. Yoga can be scary for people. A lot of times people, it's funny. There's that last pose on your yoga mat called Shavasana, and everybody just lays down on their mat. And it's like the reason I would go to yoga. I'm like, I need to lay down. Like, is the nap coming soon, right? But there's people who are afraid of that part. And they would leave early. They would kind of scoot out. And it's because it's that stillness that people are kind of afraid, what's going to come up for me? And some, in yoga, you learn with yoga and meditation kind of how to let things come up, how to be uncomfortable in it, just stay there, and let it pass. And so that's a really hard practice for people. So it's the same with, EQ, what you guys are talking about. It's the same with the stuff we uncover in coaching. I think to say yes, there has to be bravery. There has to be courage. It's easier to say, I'm good. I have enough. I'm not going to push the envelope here, but I'm really interested in helping people kind of cross that threshold when they're like, I really want to say yes to this, and they know what they want. They just need a little hand holding across the way.
And there's, and this is one of the reasons why I knew this would be a great interview, because what you do, there's so much, it's all emotional intelligence. Like even if you didn't call it that, that's what's happening, because people are having to face these emotions. People are having here's the thing that people don't realize about emotions is there is no logical thought without emotions. Just the way our brains are developed, the thought has to pass through the emotional part of our brain to get to the logical part of our brain. So it's not like we can just turn it off. That's impossible. Right. We don't turn it off. And we see this so much in the business world, where people will feel stuck. I call it, they're either stuck at start or they're stuck at scale, right? Where they, like with what you do, they see the thing and they're like, I want to say yes to this, but I've got all this stuff, right? And they might not even know why they're stuck, but typically it's, it's a mindset, and behind every mindset is an emotion. Attached to every mindset is an emotion. And it's really hard to change the mindset until the emotion is addressed, because again, that comes first. So how do you do that? Like what's something that you do to walk people through, okay, let's touch this emotion and move through it?
Well, before you answer that, I've got another question before that one.
Hold that thought.
What percentage of the folks that you work with are aware of why they're having a tough time saying yes?
Ooh, that's a good question.
It's interesting. I think I have a lot of emotionally intelligent clients, because I do think that a lot of them are, well, here's the thing. When they say it out loud to me, so what coaching is basically like if I had a one-on-one session with somebody, I really don't talk that much. And it's very difficult for me. I actually have a Post-it on my computer that says WAIT. It's an acronym. Why am I talking?
Oh, that's awesome.
To remind myself, right? But what I love about that is, okay, so I just ask questions. So I'm just like a guide. I don't have the answers for you in your life. You have those answers. And so when I say that they're emotionally intelligent, what I mean by that is a lot of times they'll start talking. I'll ask a question, they'll start talking, and they hear themselves, maybe for the first time.
Yep.
They hear themselves and they catch it and they go, oh, I'm in my own way. Like they catch themselves. So coaching is like this discovery process. It's not that you don't have everything you need already or that you can't make this work. It's that you actually, you don't know what you don't know, but when you're in a space to say it out loud, you know it. You recognize it. You go, ooh, that's a limiting thought. And maybe they don't have the word limiting thought, but so I would say to them, and this is when you ask the question, well, how do you walk someone through that? The emotion and the thought is so interesting, because as I'm asking them a question, when they start talking about, say, something they want to create or something they want to do, or they want to read, or they want to write a book, or they want to travel, or they want to start this business, when they start talking about that thing that they want, even their voice raises and their body language comes forward, and they're just a completely different person than when they're talking about something that they don't want. And so I will ask them, so imagine yourself 5 years down the road and you've started this thing and you've done this thing that you're talking about doing. How do you feel then? So we bring it back to the feeling, and then they start to get excited, and you can hear it in their voice, and they're like, I feel so good. I feel so excited. I feel so accomplished. I feel like I'm so glad I took that risk, right? But in their thoughts, they might not have ever gotten to that. But when they hear themselves and they feel themselves saying it like that, then it resonates with them. They're like, yeah, I want that feeling. Right? So it's almost like we're playing with like, how would you feel if you do that? And then how would you feel if you don't? And I'll hear in their voice, disappointed, bummed out, sad, regretful. these, and then we've talked about this too, but sometimes they'll say sad and I'll say, okay, let's get deeper. What do you mean by sad? And then they get to like regretful.
Yeah.
And
so
then
it's almost like you're guiding them, helping them get that self-awareness.
Yes.
That's like, because like you said, it's all there. These things are inside of us, but a lot of times we just don't have the awareness of them. And so what an incredible gift to give somebody to help them see that for themselves.
Well, I always say life coaching is life-changing, because it is, because I've been coached, and sometimes it feels like you just wish you would have discovered this earlier because you knew it. Right? It's probably like EQ in a lot of ways. In that way, you're like, oh, I wish somebody, it's like yoga. I'm always like, I wish somebody would have told me this when I was a kid. This breath work is really helpful. So yeah, I think it's just helping them discover. And that's the other thing about coaching entrepreneurs and business owners and visionaries. And it's so funny because I always say visionaries and people are like, well, I'm not a visionary. Like they're really embarrassed to say like, I don't know if I wouldn't go that far. And it's like, I looked up visionary, and visionary is someone who imagines the future with wisdom and imagination.
That's good.
Isn't that awesome?
Yes. Yes.
And that's how all my people are. They see the future with wisdom and imagination. They're so excited about this thing. And then the voices come in, right? And so we know, being entrepreneurs, you can be really excited. You can be like, I'm hanging up a shingle, I'm putting it up. And then all of a sudden you start taking some courses or you start getting some free downloads on those podcasts and you get overwhelmed and you're like, I don't have anything ready.
Right.
There's no way I could do this. Yep. It's going to cost me a fortune. And so I'm this voice of reason that helps them. I'm like, okay, what's the one thing you can do? I've talked people out of the $4,000 training because I'm like, okay, before you, it's kind of like my daughter. I'm like, before you go to grad school, let's get a job.
Right.
Right. So like a lot of times to people, I'm like, but what's one thing you could do today that would help move you forward, that you don't need to hire anyone else for, that you don't need to spend any money for, but like you already have it within you. And I think sometimes it's just calling up the best within somebody, like calling up what they already have at their disposal. They've talked themselves into, they need something more. And one of the things for the entrepreneurs out there that I think is really important, and I want to say this to like entrepreneurs, I want to say this to parents, I want to say this to women, I want to say this to husbands, wives, there's not one right way to do it. There's not one path to success. There's not. And there's shame that comes on us if we don't have, like, especially with coaching, people will say, well, I know I'm supposed to have an early morning routine and I didn't work out today and I didn't read my Bible today. And so and it's like, whoa. It's this shame and this like sense of, I didn't do it right.
Right.
And then they give up and I'm like, everyone has their own rhythm. Right. So I love in scripture in the Message version where it says, it's the part where he says, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden. But in the Message version, it says, I will teach you the unforced rhythms of grace. And that to me is what I want to share with everyone. You are capable. You can do this. You might not do it exactly like your neighbor did it. But guess what? We're not going to get up to heaven and God's going to be like, you were pretty good, except Janie next door, she really nailed it. Right. He's going to be like, did you run your race?
Yes.
Right. So I just think so in Great Big Yes, what I always say that we have three parts. It's foundation, focus, and flow. And so the foundation is knowing that you are created by God who loves you. He created you with a plan and a purpose in mind, and you're fully capable and worthy. That's our starting point. Like our belovedness is our starting point. Without that, it's hard for me to coach people because we got to get that. So I end up talking about that. Worthiness is a big topic that we talk about. So we got to get there. We got to kind of be on that page together. And then we get to the focus part. And that's like the life coaching stuff. Like that's what I'm reading all the books about. That's like forming good habits. That's scheduling. right? That's like time blocking for business owners. Sometimes you need to do like a bunch of podcasts in one day, or sometimes you need to do this or that so you can have some free time to be creative, right? So there's strategizing about time and scheduling and focus and habits. So that's all kind of the life coaching part that falls under focus. So we've got foundation, we know we're worthy, we've got the focus, we've got the plan, and then the flow is that unforced rhythm of grace. It's that place where you are that is, you guys know when you're in the flow and you could like write or speak or do whatever for hours on end about this thing and you never get tired of it because you're like, this is what I was made to do. So it's like, that's what I want to get people to, just by helping them discover what that is. And then here's the other piece to that. A lot of people are like, yeah, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Right. And that's okay. Just even saying that or asking the question, it brings us back to kind of what we talked about earlier is I believe action brings clarity. So even if you don't know what to do, don't be afraid of failing at something. Just try something. I have a whole podcast that's called It's Not That Deep, Just Try Stuff. Because I really do believe we get stuck thinking it has to be this perfect thing before we do anything.
Right.
But you may launch out, like, so for me, for instance, I worked like in business, like in insurance. Then I worked as a recruiter. Then I became a mom and I stayed home. Then I started painting furniture. Like, so I had a whole business at home, like painting furniture for everybody in the neighborhood. And I would go get furniture at like flea markets or off the side of the road. I mean, my kids have memories of being in like the back of the van and they're holding like a dresser. I'm like, don't let the dresser fall. And they're like 7.
Yeah.
But I had that whole thing. And then I did the whole yoga thing. And now I'm a life coach. And now I finally feel like this is 100% what I was made to do. Mm-hmm. And every single thing up to it is not wasted. And God will use every bit of it for my purpose. And so I tell people all the time, I encourage them, it's okay. Nothing's a waste. People are like, but my background's so random. And I'm like, but to God, it's not random. Like he's going to put together all those pieces and he's going to use it for good. So I just want to encourage people. There's no right way to do it. You're on the right path, even if you don't know the path. And God will make sense of it. Just stay awake. Pay attention. What brings you energy? What makes your voice lift? What makes your body come forward? What are you excited to talk about?
I think that is huge because how many people have we talked to over the years that they're stuck for all of those reasons? They're stuck because they feel like it doesn't make sense. They feel like they don't have something to offer. They feel like they're not good enough. They feel like they're not ready. They feel like, just what you had said about change. Like, look how many different things you've done. Maybe they seem seemingly unrelated, but that's where the faith comes in that, okay, no, God is stringing. We always say it this way. He's the ultimate recycler, right? Yes. He is the ultimate recycler. Well, he will take stuff, even the bad stuff, even the things that we look back and we're like, that was terrible, or that was a terrible time, or I wish I didn't do that, or I wish that, right? Even our regrets, even those things, all of the good, and he recycles it all. And it's like, this is how you get, flip-flops out of water bottles. It's just like that, what God does in our lives. And if we can just get out of our own way to allow that to happen and to not carry the shame, because I know I've done that. I have done that where I've thought, well, because I'm not doing this thing that I thought was my thing, then I failed at it, where God's like, no, you didn't fail. It's just time to move to the new thing. It's just, here's the next yes, right? The next yes that I want you to give. I want to ask you a question. One of the recent podcasts that you did, I just listened to it, where you talked about permission and how people feel like they're waiting for permission from, I don't know,
the principal.
Like, who knows from what? Just somebody needs to give me permission to do this thing. I think that's there's a lot to that. There's a lot of people who feel that way.
Yeah.
Why do you think people do that? Why are we in this position where we feel like and I'll, after you answer your question, I'll kind of just share a quick story where I was in that exact position. But why do you think we do this, where we have to look for permission outside of ourselves to say yes to the thing that God has for us? Where does that come from?
I think it comes from our socialization in church and school and with our parents, probably. You know, a lot of it comes from, we did have to wait for, I'm a good girl. I'm like that girl who likes to follow the rules. And so I like people who like me, and I like everybody to get along. And so to branch out sometimes and just step out in faith is a little bit like, you're like, wait, who's done this before me? Like, is there a path here? Is there a well-worn path here? Or am I going to have to create my own path? But as I've gotten older, it's like, I want to create my own path. Like now I'm like stepping into this whole new thing. And it's funny because the other day on Instagram, and I wrote about this on Instagram, but I was changing my bio. And this goes out to all the entrepreneurs who maybe think that they can't put anything in the bio unless it's like rock solid and it's never going to change. I have news for you. I'm changing that thing like every other day. But I was in here changing it, and it said life coach, and I changed it to life and business coach, but it was too long. And so it said too long. And so I started putting yes in there, and I was going to put like, yes, girl, or something. I was going to think of something new, but I put yes, but coach was still in there. And so it kicked me out. It said, you've changed it too many times. You can't change it again. So it says yes, coach. And I'm like, it's perfect.
So perfect for you.
Like, yes. That's exactly right. So I just want to encourage people, like, even when you think you're making a mistake or you're being indecisive or you're down some path and you're like, I'm not sure how this is going to turn out. Just trusting that there may be a divine intervention here, and then just receiving it. Like, I'm a yes coach. Has that ever been said before? Probably not. Do people know what it is? Absolutely not. I'm probably going to need to do some explaining. And there's a part of me that's like, you need to be crystal clear. Like, you need to make sure people know exactly what you do by the words you use, which I get. But to me, I also see the other side. I go, wow, I would see yes coach and be like, tell me more about that.
Right.
What does that mean? Like, I'd be curious. I'd be interested. So I guess all that to say is, like, people are waiting for permission, and they're also not always thinking they can be the one who makes the path. They think, I have to walk this well-worn path. But the truth is, like, God's inviting us, and it says in scripture, I'm doing a new thing. Do you not perceive it? Right. And if ever 2020, God is doing a new thing, right? Like, can we get an amen? Like, we got to get on board for the new thing, because the old ways aren't always working. Right. Yeah. And so I think we wait for permission because we've been told to. I think we're good girls and boys. I think that we don't want to rock the boat. I think that we don't want to fail. I think we're afraid of failure. Which, we've talked about. Failure is not a thing. It's really just learning. You're either succeeding and it's going great, or you're just learning and you're changing it up. So tell me about you, though. You said that you had a permission situation.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So it's so funny. It wasn't even that long ago where there was this big decision that we were making in our lives. And it was insane. I don't know, maybe this will sound insane, but maybe this will relate. So here's this decision that we're making in our life and for our family. And we were 45 years old, and I was like frozen. I was frozen to make this decision because this particular person hadn't given me permission to do it. Some outside person who I had put in this place in my life, obviously, that I felt like I needed permission, in spite of the fact that I had a journal, and I was journaling with my quiet time with God every single day. And it's so funny. I think that was a gift that God gave me, honestly, because I can look back and over for months and months, God is saying, Kathy, I want you to do this. I have this for you. This, like, very specific stuff. And one day I was like, this is so messed up. I have God himself telling me, I have this for you. I want you to do this. This is my will. But I was so hung up because some other outside person hadn't given me their permission.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I got to address this. I can't do this.
Right.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yes, it's paralyzing to be in that position when you're waiting for somebody else's permission for whatever the reason is. But it is definitely paralyzing. And then the corresponding consequences. She had 2 anxiety attacks, 2 panic attacks, were like physically affecting her. So it's not a fun spot to be when you're stuck in that spot, for sure.
So let me ask you this: what other mental or emotional blocks do you see with these people that you're working with entrepreneurs when they're facing a great big yes, right? So God is like, this is the thing, this is the path, this is the new thing I'm doing. What are some of the big things, and maybe just one way that you could tell our listeners here, okay, here's a bridge over this thing that's holding you back from your yes.
Yeah. And I think we touched on it a little bit. I think the main thing I hear from people is if they're not afraid or waiting for permission, they're overwhelmed.
Okay. Ooh, that's good. Yep.
So, and that happens when you're an entrepreneur or just in regular life, right? So we might just be completely overwhelmed. And I had a coach once say to me, and this is so powerful, but it's a little bit like a gut check. But she said, overwhelm is a choice.
Yeah. Woo.
And so I am overwhelmed is a thought.
Yep.
You think it's a fact, but it's a thought. And so if they said to me, I'm overwhelmed, I wish I could start this, or I'm ready to do this, or I think this is where God's calling me, but I'm just so overwhelmed. I would say, okay, now let's take that thought. Tell me more about that. How does that feel to you? And I would get them to talk about what overwhelm feels like in their body and what overwhelm steals from them.
Ooh, that's good.
So overwhelm, like fear is something that sometimes we could even talk about the gifts fear gives us. Like there's a book written, it's called The Gift of Fear. And sometimes you can look at fear as like, it's a gift because it gives me that sense that I'm in danger, right? And I suffered from PTSD for a long time, and I had to understand that my body thought it was in danger, so it was protecting me. But the way it was acting was so out of control that I had to get a hold of the fact that I wasn't in danger. Like I had to figure that out, right? But fear can give gifts. Now, overwhelm, I'm like, does overwhelm give us any gifts? Not really.
Not really.
Not at all. So what is overwhelm stealing from us? So and then people start to talk about, well, it makes me feel this way. Well, it's stealing this from me. And I'm thinking, well, how else can we look at this, right? And I say it all the time, and I think I've already said it a few times here, but action brings clarity. So I would encourage my client to, if you feel overwhelmed, one, recognize that overwhelm, this sentence, I am overwhelmed, is not a fact. You feel overwhelmed, but that's a choice.
Right.
So you can do something about it. So it's about ownership in your own life. It's about really creating the life that you want by choosing the way that you think and feel. And so that's really hard work. But so if I was going to say what to do, I would say, you're going to look at that thought. You're going to recognize it when it comes up. You're going to say, is that true? Am I overwhelmed? Like, is this overwhelming? That's the other thing. People say, it's just so overwhelming. It's just so overwhelming. Like, throw your hands up. It's so overwhelming. They could say that about parenting. They could say that about business. They could say that about a lot of things, right? It's just so overwhelming. But again, that's a choice. So you could say, I'm going to choose not to be overwhelmed. I mean, you guys know, if you join these groups as entrepreneurs, it can be overwhelming if you choose to let it be overwhelming. There's a lot of people speaking in the Facebook groups. There's a lot of things you need to watch, but you can decide and set boundaries around that and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to do only what I can do today. I'm one person and I can only do one thing. And I'm big on the one thing.
Yeah.
And so you pick one thing to do. And so I'll have my clients tell me, what's the one thing you'll do? Like in the membership, we do this. It's accountability, right? You say, what's the one thing you plan to do this week? And they all write in there, this is my thing for this week. And then we check up and say, how did that go this week? But if they came to me and said, I'm going to start a whole new website, I'm going to launch a podcast, I'm going to join a new group, and I'm going to write content for like 3 weeks of blogs, I would be like, no, you're not.
None of that would happen.
That's where I don't wait to speak. I'm like, whoa, Nellie, no. But honestly, that's what we tend to do is we bite off way more than we can chew. Then we say we're overwhelmed, and then we quit.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's about choosing to do less, committing to less, doing one thing at a time. Because I'd rather do one thing really, really well that will move the needle forward than 500 other things that I don't really do. I'm piecemealing things together, right?
Yeah.
So I would ask people, number one, always take every thought captive, examine it, ask yourself if it's true. So say you have a thought that actually is true, like something that is also kind of a thought, but like somebody could argue with me. Actually, Sue, it is true, right? Now I can't come up with anything, but,
right.
and I would say, okay, that's fine. Is it helpful? Because overwhelm is never helpful.
Usually, nope, it is not helpful.
Right.
That's so
and
good.
It's about, we all know this, but it's about I think what happens with coaching that's so great is it's time to just sit and process. But a coach isn't like a therapist. Like we're not diving into like your childhood. It's all about getting you moving forward. So it's like, what steps could we take today that would make you feel better? Like a lot of women go to coaches for losing weight. And you know how it is with losing weight. If you say, I'm going to cut all carbs, all sugar, I'm going to cut all alcohol, and I'm going to drink 8 glasses of water a day, and I'm going to work out. You're not going to do any of that, and you're going to fail, and you're going to be frustrated. And that's why the diet industry makes so much money. But if you just say, you know what, today I'm going to drink more water. I'm going to drink 8 glasses of water. And then you wake up tomorrow and you do that again. Say you do that for a week. All of a sudden, you've gone from a person who can't keep promises to themselves to the person that keeps promises to themselves. And you're braver to make another promise to yourself.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like EQ, I'm sure. It grows. So the more, when you keep promises to yourself, the more brave you're going to be the next time it's time to keep a promise to yourself. Because you're like, or to even make a promise to yourself. You're like, well, I did the water thing. So I think I'm okay. I think I'm equipped. I think I can do the no alcohol this week, or no sugar this week, or whatever it is you decide. And then the next week you go, maybe I could even add a little something more. But it's knowing that pace that works for you and not cutting off more than you can chew. So overwhelm often comes from our own doing.
Yeah. No, that's so true. And overwhelm, like you said, it's a choice and it's a feeling. And
so you can say, I choose not to be overwhelmed.
Yes, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so good. That's so good.
So empowering.
I have one more question for you, Sue. Yeah. What is on the other side of yes? Like what, we talked a little about visionary. So what is on the other side of yes? Like what's it look like? What are the benefits of saying the big, scary yes and doing the thing?
I love that question. Joy, peace, freedom, excitement, whatever age you are, to be able to say the best is yet to come. I'm doing a new thing. God's always doing a new thing. Like he's never done with me. Like it's mercies are fresh every morning. Right. Like, so, but it's the excitement. I think there was a time where I realized when I was a younger mom and young kids, and all the moms were getting together and they were complaining. And they were complaining about their husbands, and they were complaining about their kids, and they were just complaining. And it didn't fit me. It didn't feel right. And I remember being like, I don't want to be that person. Like, I don't want to be sitting around complaining. Like, what if we are in heaven right now, but in our minds, we're making it hell. Right. And so for me, I was like, I want to appreciate and have gratitude and be excited. And so yes to me is, it's the threshold, but it's also like the starting point, right? Because you say yes, and then you go and you do the thing. Like it's a commitment to yourself to not get to the end of your life and have God be like, I gave you all of this. What did you do with it? Right. And I think it stems from when I was a kid learning that quote that says like, what you are is God's gift to you and what you become is your gift to God. And I always think of that as I want to be a blessing and I want to live in a way that shows other people what's possible. Like I want to be an encouragement just by the way I show up. So if I show up happy, it's kind of like when you walk in a room and people are like down in the dumps and you can feel it and you're like, ugh. I feel like sometimes I'm in the world and the world's like that. It's like, ugh. It's like hiding. And I'm like, no. So I think the yes like opens everybody up to just like, it feels light. Like another example of this is when we were moving to Texas. So we moved to Texas 6 years ago from a lifetime in Illinois, in the Chicago area. And families there, everyone's there, loved it. Great people, great city, like moved to Texas, never been to Austin. My husband got a new job. And with his company, he got a job. And so he always wanted to live somewhere warm. So in our years of being married, I knew that we were going to have to move for my husband to not feel like I held him back. So I knew that was happening, that was coming down. So over the years, different things had been discussed, and sometimes he'd be like, well, what do you think about like Fort Wayne, Indiana? I'm like, I don't see that really changing our lifestyle. Like we're going to move to the Midwest. Like we're in the Midwest. Right. So whenever something came up, it was like La Jolla, California. I'm like, okay. Right. So Austin, Texas came up. And for some reason, immediately it landed and it felt like a yes. But I was like, okay, we're going to pray. We're going to take it to the Lord. We're going to see. And we've talked already about how our body sends signals of our thoughts and our feelings, and it's all connected. But for me, especially being a holy yoga teacher and understanding like the connection, I met God most powerfully on my yoga mat because he met me there where my body was like tired. And he came to me and the one word he said to me on the yoga mat was like, you can rest. And I remember it. I mean, I will always remember it. It's so clear to me that he said, you can rest, right? So for me, it's all about like the body. What is my body telling me right now? So I was praying about Texas and it was like light came over me, like a light, like, and in both ways, like the light that shines, but also the lightness. And when I thought of staying, it felt heavy. And so I was like, I think on the other side of yes is light. Because when we were talking about moving, it wasn't about leaving. It was about going toward something. It was about choosing possibility and opportunity. It wasn't about because I'm angry and I'm leaving with my middle finger up over here. It was like, that's great. And everything I had there is great. And it served its purpose. And God met me there. And now he's asking me to move. And as I move, I see opportunity and possibility. So the yes is lightness in the form of like sunlight and light, but also a lighter way of being in the world.
And in your spirit. Yeah, that's awesome.
So when you become who you're supposed to be, it doesn't feel heavy. It doesn't feel burdensome. It doesn't feel hard. It might feel a little scary, but that's okay because I think whenever God asks us to step out in faith, it is a little bit scary.
Yeah.
But we don't do it alone. And so, I would say on the other side of yes is light, possibility, opportunity, freedom, joy, contentment, right? Not just to be like, oh, I'm fine with the status quo, but like I've really created something that I love. I'm living with intention.
I love that. That's a great
awesome.
answer. I love it.
Amazing.
Okay, Sue, tell us, how can people find you? How can people follow you? How can people work with you?
Thank you. Yes, it's Great Big Yes on everything. So on Instagram, Facebook, and greatbigyes.com. And the podcast is Great Big Yes on iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud. And I have a membership, and it's for women entrepreneurs who are ready to say yes, or who have said yes and just need some help growing their business. And so I always say I help you grow your business without losing your mind. I do feel there's a lot of business advice out there that's a little bit like, and I think maybe bringing the perspective of just being a little bit older, I'm like, this isn't my first rodeo. Like, I'm not going to fall for every, I'm not in there telling people to buy followers. I'm not in there telling people to like show up in their bikini on Instagram, right? Like, it's like legit, like real life. How do we build something with integrity?
Yeah.
And how do we have a lot of fun doing it and get excited about the future to come? So the membership's called Team Yes, and they can find that at greatbigyes.com.
I love it. All right, guys, if that's you, if you are, well, not guys, I guess this would
just
be
girls.
Just girls, which is awesome. If that's you, go connect with Sue. Sue, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Sue.
It was so awesome.
Like ZZ Top. That was awesome.
Awesome. Thank you.